Once upon a time in a quaint little town, there lived two mothers, each with a unique perspective on life. One was a wealthy and extravagant woman named Mrs. Richardson, while the other was a humble and hardworking woman named Mrs. Patel. Despite their differing financial circumstances, both mothers shared a deep love for their children and had an unyielding determination to provide them with the best possible lives. Mrs. Richardson was the epitome of luxury. She lived in a lavish mansion, adorned with expensive art and surrounded by beautifully landscaped gardens. Her days were filled with indulgent spa treatments, shopping sprees, and extravagant parties. She believed that material possessions and social status were the ultimate keys to happiness and success. On the other hand, Mrs. Patel resided in a modest house on the outskirts of town. She had a small vegetable garden in her backyard and worked tirelessly as a seamstress to make ends meet. Every penny she earned was dedicated to her family's well-being. Mrs. Patel instilled in her children the values of hard work, kindness, and perseverance, believing that true happiness lay in the simple joys of life. One sunny day, Mrs. Richardson and Mrs. Patel coincidentally met at a local community fair. As they strolled through the stalls with their children, they engaged in polite conversation. Mrs. Richardson spoke animatedly about her extravagant vacations, designer wardrobes, and expensive toys for her children. Meanwhile, Mrs. Patel smiled warmly, sharing stories of picnics in the park, family game nights, and the joy she found in crafting homemade gifts. Their conversation revealed a stark contrast in their outlooks on life. Mrs. Richardson believed that her wealth could provide her children with all the happiness they needed, while Mrs. Patel emphasized the importance of love, togetherness, and nurturing their children's dreams. A few months passed, and an unforeseen financial crisis struck the town. Mrs. Richardson's fortune dwindled, leaving her devastated and unsure of how to maintain her extravagant lifestyle. In contrast, Mrs. Patel's humble lifestyle was largely unaffected since she had always prioritized saving and living within her means. Facing an uncertain future, Mrs. Richardson reached out to Mrs. Patel for advice. Recognizing the opportunity for growth, Mrs. Patel graciously welcomed her into her home. She taught Mrs. Richardson the value of budgeting, frugality, and finding joy in the simple pleasures of life. As the months went by, Mrs. Richardson discovered a newfound appreciation for the small, meaningful moments shared with her children. She realized that love, support, and spending quality time together were more important than any material possession. Mrs. Richardson transformed into a more compassionate and down-to-earth person, determined to prioritize her family's happiness over her own desires for extravagance. Over time, the two mothers formed a deep bond. They learned from one another, combining their strengths and experiences to create a harmonious balance between wealth and simplicity. Mrs. Richardson's financial knowledge and Mrs. Patel's nurturing spirit became a formidable duo, benefiting not only their own families but also the community around them. Together, they organized workshops to teach financial literacy to other families, emphasizing the importance of saving, budgeting, and investing wisely. They also initiated community projects that focused on providing education and support to those in need. Their collaboration inspired other parents to find the balance between material wealth and emotional well-being, creating a ripple effect of positive change throughout the town. In the end, the story of the rich mom and poor mom proved that true wealth lies in the values we instill in our children, the love we share with our families, and the positive impact we have on our communities. It is not measured by the size of our bank accounts or the grandeur of our possessions, but by the depth of our character and the kindness we show to others.